No, I can't be up in here complaining. Gotta let them know I'm famous in my heart. Listen here, I'm here for the world to hear. And I'ma make sure they know what my name is. I just wanna end up famous in
I'm so serious, probably why they be so damn curious. They furious. Easy got these ladies on some silly shit. Now what the dilly is, I'm going all out. Hey, I'm the talk of the town while y'all just saw a mouth. Here's a story about my quest to be rich. I'm like Beyonce and Kelly on some Destiny shit. Mr. 6 Mile, look me up, I'm somewhat a dream. Got my city like an addict, guess it's somewhat a fiend. For my team, anything less is uncivilized. Surprise, I'm seeing this world through clear eyes. And haters only made me more inspired to bless. On the clock right now, what the hell is the next? Like that feeling in your chest when you're ready to leave. Like that memory you had, you just couldn't believe. And we always got a little ammunition for y'all, cause we remember when they wouldn't even listen at all.
Listen here, I can't go another year. No, I can't be up in here complaining. Gotta let them know I'm famous in my heart. Listen here, I'm here for the world to hear. And I'ma make sure they know what my name is. I wanna end up famous in there.
In 97, no Gunston and 6 Measy. The streets made a natural born hustler. Believe me, drop real with it. That was my first EP. Grind harder than granted, but made it look easy. Take it to the top, that was the plan. Now I'm known worldwide from Detroit to Japan.
Welcome to another episode of the Jackson Report. And if my memory strikes me correctly, this is episode 5. So we doing it. I'm going to have to start this week off a little different. So I'm going to go on and get to this so we can get this out the way before we really get to having fun today. Y'all know what I gotta speak on the topic that's making headlines. So last night, I'm browsing like I always do, and the very first thing I saw was the president's son basically saying, I need to do an intervention. I need to talk with Pops, let him know he going kind of crazy with all of this stuff he's doing. And you know, I'm reading through the article and it's like, basically he's saying from the tweets he been tweeting this past weekend and just his actions, he thinks it's time for them to have a sit down with his pops. Now, you know, you really got to be going overboard if your son is going to come to you and tell you, hey, you probably need to ease up a little bit. But, you know, me always thinking, is he really sick, or is it yet another plot with this whole 2020 series, I guess you can say, we've been going through? But I will say this, on a little bit of a lighter note, the Simpsons have never been wrong. The Simpsons have predicted almost everything to a T up until this point, from his rise to power to his presidency and maybe even this whole corona thing. So I had to start the show off today talking about that, because for your son to come to you and say, hey, Pops, I think you need to stop tweeting and be a president. That's deep. Because I know it's been times I had to go to my pops about some stuff, but I didn't feel the need to give it national news coverage. So for your only son, your eldest son, I should say, to really think it's time to have an intervention, that's saying a lot. That's saying, like, is the man really sick, or is this yet another plot thickening in this whole election thing? It's a lot going on with this election too. Like, we a month out. Well, less than a month now. It's less than a month away from the election. So I hope by now y'all know who y'all voting for, who y'all gonna go with. Y'all been looking back. And I say this, don't go running out to the polls on empty promises. Don't go running out to the polls because you heard one thing that was said that maybe you agreed with. Really sit back and think about it. Think about the issues. Think about the speeches. Think about everything in total before you just run out and make that decision because he said one thing that sounded good to you. On either side. It's like this week, I realized over the past couple weeks, it's been kind of seeming like I'm straying to one side with how I've been talking. But my thing is, everything is an opinion. My opinion may be different from yours. Yours obviously may be different from mine. But that doesn't mean neither one is not valid. So when you go out to vote and you're going to vote this year, really think about it. Really look at the issues and really think about where we're trying to be in this next 4 years. Not about, oh, well, he promised this and this sounds better than this. Because judging off the debate, we still left in limbo. So it's like, start researching. Research who stands on what. And that's how you make your decision. But, as always, I was looking through the stuff as usual. And I saw just why the Sun may think, Pops, you're going a little bit overboard. Because I was reading this other article that's saying the president now wants to cut all relief talks until after the election. And it got me to wondering, like, why would he want to do that? Why would he want to do that? So when I was reading this article, basically, he wants to do that because he wants Mitch McConnell to focus on appointing that new justice that he nominated. What is it? Amy Conner or something. He wants the focus to be on that. So, you know me, I'm no conspiracy theorist or nothing like that. But I'm always thinking and my wheels always spinning. Why is he in such a rush to get this justice appointed on top of testing positive, on top of still wanting to be around people, riding out, waving, and still trying to take pictures and speak in a room full of people and you're not wearing a mask? Reports coming out that the majority of the White House staff may test positive for COVID. Why all of this now? Why all of this with less than a month before the election? So reading the article, he then said, basically, Nancy Pelosi is not negotiating in good faith. That's the excuse. Oh, she just wants us to give these poorly ran Democratic states help. So it's like finger point. Why is the stimulus just for Democratic states? I thought it was for the whole United States. Not every state in the United States is a Democratic state. So the word poorly stuck out to me with that. And y'all still don't get the picture. It's not about Democratic or Republican. It's about who's got it and who doesn't. But the closer we get to this election, it's like him saying that maybe it's backfiring a little bit. Because glancing through, I saw that when he made that statement, the stock market literally just started plummeting. Because now, all talks is off the table. And if you think about it, we really ain't out the woods yet with this pandemic. far as the economy goes, yeah, it's places opening back up. But the biggest hit came to the service industry. Restaurants closing, hotels closing. And they're basically at a standstill. You got all hotels opening up, barely making it. Restaurants opening up. Some never opening their doors again. So is it really a Republican or a Democratic issue when it comes to this whole stimulus bill? Or is it more so keep the rich rich and let those who's not rich just deal with the consequences? And the closer we get to this election, I keep wondering, is it going to be like a tidal wave of people just waking up like, dang, he really not our president. He really not. This president basically should just be like the main chairman for all of the wealthy. You ask yourself during this whole pandemic, what has life been like for you during this pandemic? See, today, I came a little bit earlier, and we was thinking about all of the stuff I was going to discuss with y'all today. And I told Chuck, I said, you know what? I think today going to be a different day. Today going to be the day of transparency. The past couple weeks, I've been talking about a lot of different things. So I figured this week, since I did the inaugural report and it was introducing y'all to the Jackson report, I figured today I might as well introduce y'all to the guy who in behind the Jackson report. The guy who had the vision to put all this together. And it's kind of like, it leads me into really what I want to discuss with y'all today. People been asking me to speak on it on my show. I've had a lot of different friends get in contact with me. And just general people I've been talking about, because I started back doing my little lift thing a couple weekends ago. And people was asking me to speak on like people's mental health during this whole pandemic. So I was telling Chuck earlier, I said, yeah, I think I'm going to speak on mental health. So it was like, okay, I don't want to speak on it and just be talking out the side of my neck. So let's pull up some numbers. Now, these numbers are from 2017. So I'm figuring, just the common sense guy in me, that by now, during this pandemic, these numbers possibly could have doubled. But it's saying 3.7% of all people have anxiety. And I could hold true to that because I was anxious before these cameras started coming on. I was pretty much, I'm used to being up in front of the camera talking with y'all, but today, I don't know. For some reason, I had that feeling of anxiety building up because I knew what I wanted to speak on. So 3.4% of all people have that same thing going on with it. They get anxious. You might be about to walk into a business meeting. Heck, you might even be about to walk into a date, a restaurant, a store, and you get a little slight feeling of anxiety because nowadays you never know. Going into the business meeting, you have that slight bit of anxiety because if you got a point to make, you want to drill that point home and you want everybody to understand the point you was making. Or if you're going on a date, you might have anxiety because you're like, well, I hope this person gonna like me. I hope we kind of have a connection. Hope it don't be a disaster date. And just like in everyday life, when you drive and you have it. So I could see that. But it also said that 3.4% of all people suffer from depression. That's the big one. That's the big one. Because you never know what's on a person's mind. Like, you never know what somebody is thinking. They could be smiling in your face. They could be cracking jokes all day long. But you never really fully know what's on this person's mind. They could be looking at you smiling and you think they having the time of their life. But in the back of their mind, they be thinking about swan diving off the top of a building because of something that's going on with their life. So when it comes to stuff like that, always try to take an impartial approach when it comes to people's mental health. Because a lot of people sometimes don't be even mentally aware that they suffering something. And it just start projecting onto everything around them. It also says during this article that we was looking at, me and Chuck trying to make sure our numbers were fact-based. Apparently, 1.4% of all people suffer from alcoholism. Meaning the way they dealing with their stuff is, I'm not going to worry about it. It ain't going to bother me. But yet they drinking like a fish out of water. So they haven't addressed really what's going on the inside of them because they taking it out in the bottle. On top of the 1.4% of people that suffer from alcoholism, 1% of everybody suffers from drug usage. So you got the people that's boozing it up. Then you got the people that's boozing it up, popping pills, possibly snorting lines, just trying to cope. But in all honesty, my personal belief and my personal feeling is, if you look in the mirror and just address and fully address what's happening with you, it can either make you bitter or it can make you better. 0.6%, which is a very low number, 0.6% of all people legitimately suffer from bipolar disorder. And researching it, it kind of gave me a better understanding of how it all works. Like, see, when you bipolar, it's not like a up 1 minute, down the next minute. Sometimes you could be up for months. Or you could just be in a down spell for months. So that really shed some light on a lot of situations for me with my everyday endeavors. Because I've dealt sometimes with people and it's just like, why are you being like that? And I have to sit back and ask myself, and a lot of people's main go-to be, oh, I'm just bipolar and I go through this and that. So I'm looking at it with the bipolar disorder thing. Only 0.6%. That's a very low number as compared to everything else. So always me thinking and trying to put it together. I figure, if you're not a drunk or you just on extensive drugs, then how bipolar are you? Or is that just an easy go-to to treat people a certain kind of way? See, my producer, he always joke with me and he'd be like, your show's so easy for us. I mean, it's so fun to do because you're not scared to say what's on your mind and don't care about how it comes across. I care about how it comes across, but my prayer is always to be of a sound mind and powerful spirit. So I wouldn't be myself if I didn't feel something and speak on it. Mental health is a very serious thing because I know a lot of different people that suffer from a lot of different things as far as mental health goes. But there's always the flip side to it. There's always that devil's advocate that can come and speak on that same situation. So me being devil's advocate today, I have to speak on it from a different light. If you've been diagnosed with one of these different things, different disorders, I should say, and I kind of tripped up over my words because I know I'm getting to a serious point. If you legitimately suffer from one of these things, that's one thing. But if you find it easy to use one of these disorders as a way to treat people like crap, then you part of the problem. You're using it as a crutch. And I speak that not only from what I see, but I speak it from personal experience. Because like I said, on the inaugural report, I introduced y'all to the show. But today, I'm going to introduce y'all to me. It's funny because maybe 15 minutes before I knew I was going live to talk to y'all, I had to call my all-time hero. I called my pops and I said, hey, Pops, I don't know if y'all be checking the show out or if y'all get to see it today, but I want to speak on something with the people to open them up to a side of me that probably very few people know unless they grew up with me. And he said, no, it's all good. It's cool. So when I speak on mental health, I'm not just speaking from a place of having no empathy towards the situation. I speak from a place of personal experience. A lot of my family members probably tuning in. A lot of my close personal friends probably watching. And some of y'all know this, and a lot of y'all may not. But when I was just 2 years old, my mother actually passed away. And she was pregnant with a sister I was supposed to have. So I'm an only child by default. How she passed away was not from a stranger kicking our door in, trying to stage a robbery, not being in the wrong place at the wrong time, but being in the right place and what was supposed to be a safe haven for her. And who she was shot by was supposed to be a person that was a safe haven for her as well. So I come from a place where my mother was killed by friendly fire. Over what circumstances has always yet to be determined. But I speak that to y'all as a testimony to say, if I could use that and turn that into something that's so inspirational to me, how hard is it to say, I feel myself getting this way. I'm not going to be like that today. See, my firm belief has always been, I could never let a person with a mind just like mine's tell me that something's wrong with my mind. Because it leads back to something I was talking about previously on another episode. The money is not in the cure. The money is getting you to believe that you need something from them in order to function on a daily basis. And the irony is that most people I know that say they suffer from one of these disorders never really want to take the medicine prescribed to help with that. So that leads me to believe, how many people use that as excuses? When it comes to stuff like that, just my personal belief, and maybe this can motivate a lot of people. You are in control of your destiny. You, along with that higher power, you put your faith in him and you make a personal decision to not be a certain way, you won't be that way. I just was telling my pops, it could have been easy for me to use everything that's ever happened in my lifetime as an excuse to be a quitter, an excuse to just have no real reason to accept my own worth. And the way society is set up, I don't think nobody would have had an issue with that. Everybody probably would have felt sorry and been like, oh, he's just because he experienced this and he experienced that. But I took that experience and realized now I have a legacy to build. I have a representation that I have to uphold for somebody else's sake, because I'm the only descendant of my mother that's here. So instead of feeling sorry for myself or using it as an excuse to just be upset and lash out and hurt people, be a criminal. I have no criminal record, by the way. Had to add that. And at least me personally, I think I'm one of the nicest people I know. So when it comes to the whole mental health thing, to anybody that suffers from these different disorders, sometimes you do not have to be your circumstance. You don't. Everybody in this lifetime that we live in is dealing with something in one way, fashion, form, or another. Because whereas I could never sit back and use my mom's passing as the excuse, because to show you how God works, in my lifetime, I've had plenty of motherly influences. Plenty. So that nurturing spirit that God chose to bring home with him stayed in my life. Why? Because I took the time to notice that. It's so many motherly influences I could name off. My Aunt Jackie. For years, you couldn't tell that wasn't my mother. I could go off into so many different things. Me laying down in the backseat of state cars. But I knew when I had a issue and I needed to speak on something, I could talk to my Auntie Jackie. Then there was both my grandmas. Couldn't tell me that I didn't have a mother. The woman I grew up next door to, Miss Colleen, God rest her soul. You couldn't tell me that I wasn't one of her kids. Then there's my G-Ma in Detroit, my best friend's mother. So sometimes you don't have to take life situations and let it sink you into a place where you lose sight of who you are, and then you lay on this couch and another person who has the same mental capabilities that you do look you in your face and tell you, well, you need to take this medicine, or you probably need to do this exercise. In the past 2 years, last year and this year, I've witnessed both of my parents, and I say my parents because I don't do the stepmother thing. That's my mother. You could not tell me that that's not my mother. You couldn't tell her that I'm not her son. You couldn't tell me that my little brother is not my little brother, or my little sister is not my little sister. But I've witnessed both of my parents. Both fight cancer. And when one was in his remission, my mom realized that she got diagnosed with it. And now they're both in remission together. And I'm using all of these things to further drill my point. You don't always have to let traumatic experiences take you to a place where you start feeling down on yourself. Because not for one moment did I feel down. For one, maybe it's arrogance, but when they tell me stuff, just like I told my daddy when he called me and told me about it, okay. That's what they said. It's not true. You be all right. The same way I felt when my mom called. And I had to put myself in their shoes as parents. How hard is it to tell your children that you have something that has taken people's lives? And in that instant, I thought, how weak of me would it be if I let them see me go to shambles when it took a lot of strength just for them to tell me. So I just be saying stuff to put stuff on y'all minds, because we going through something right now that has taken a lot of different people to a lot of different places mentally. You got some people that's just ready to give up. You got others that's looking at this as opportunity. And none of us is like superhuman. So we all have our moments. Heck, even the great me, I have my moments. But it's not about the moment you're having. It's how you react to that moment. Adversity, tragedy, and trauma, it's almost like it's that dare to be great moment. Either you're going to use it as an excuse, or you're going to use it as fuel to the fire to make you that much better. Everything that I've encountered or endured, I use it to make me that much better. Why? Because I'm the type of person that's accountable, which is the real point I had to this whole show today. Accountability. I really want to speak with y'all about accountability, because a lot of people want you to be accountable for your actions. And then when you basically say, I'm reacting to your actions, they're not willing to be accountable for their own actions. Accountability goes a long way, especially to our parents out there. To the parents out there, you got to keep one thing in mind when it comes to children. Because a lot of times I look down my Facebook timeline and I see some parents be real frustrated with a lot of different things when it comes to the children. But it leads to my point, accountability. You have to be accountable for them kids. Because what's the old saying? They didn't ask to be here. Even in relationships, if one party is being accountable and held to a different standard than the other, it don't work. That's when it leads to somebody wanting to be vindictive. It's a lot of ways that we can speak on accountability. It's just like, if you know that you're the type of person that doesn't like nobody to speak on you or say nothing about you or disrespect you, then be accountable enough to not speak on nobody, not disrespect nobody. And guess what'll happen? This magical thing about the universe, it will return that upon you. Sometimes accountability makes a lot of people that play victim realize they're not a victim at all. They really was being a volunteer. Because there's certain things that go on in this lifetime. Like they say, you fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, then it's shame on me. That's just like, if you touch an electric stove and you feel the eyes warming up, then you touch it again, it's a little bit hotter. You know not to touch it the third time. Because 2 times should inform you, oh yeah, this heating up. So if you choose to touch it a 3rd, 4th, 5th time, you was volunteering to get burnt. That probably flew over a lot of y'all heads too. My uncle had this saying, you can't repeat the same process and expect different results. So until we start being accountable, how can we expect anything different than what we've been seeing? See, I be having so many conversations during my week. And I've gotten to the point where I try to take a jewel from every conversation that I've been having and give it to y'all. And then I have so many people calling like, I'm telling you, you need to say this, and I'm telling you, you need to speak on that. But today, I think how I've been feeling is I'm really ready to see more unity. It's like we've been following the leader instead of being our own leaders. Every other day in the headlines, it's a black thing or a white thing, or a black thing or a white thing, a race thing. So much to the point, it's getting frustrating to me. Because when we all realize, whether we like it or not, we in this together. From the police brutality to the whole supposed democracy of America, we in this together. When they make laws up at the top, they don't make it based on we gonna specifically target these people. Well, let me retract that. They do specifically target a certain group of people. The people that's beneficial to them. Everybody else, it's like a free fall. We'll give y'all a bit of guidance, but we don't really care about what's going on down there. So to see friendships breaking up over political views and couples having heated arguments has brought me to the point of like, we need to be more unified. I know a lot of business owners. Ironically, I was talking with one a couple days back, and he's like, oh yeah, me personally, I'm a Democrat. But as a business owner, I'm a Republican. I couldn't get mad at him for that stance. You got to protect your investment. But on the same note, some things is common sense and obvious. The president, how do you think his stance is on unity? Minus the few tidbits that he say here and there that sound good to everybody that come from neighborhoods like the one I grew up in. I'm saying look at the overall stance. How do you think he really feels? It's really like this time we really are picking the lesser of two evils. But I did. I promised my cuz that I would speak on being more unified today. Not just in my neighborhood or neighborhoods like the one I grew up in. Everybody. My people, I would love to see us more unified. I'm seeing it slowly but surely happening. I kept saying, you speak what you seek till you see what you spoke. I figured this week I would kind of reiterate on that. If we keep speaking unity, we just might look up one day and seeing it happen. It's slowly but surely happening with the protests, certain business arrangements. We seeing it happen. I'm seeing a lot of my sisters get together in these groups with other sisters from different parts of the country, and they collaborate. We can keep pushing that. The wonderful thing about social media is you could be anywhere in the world you want to be. Start reaching out. Just as long as it's not to the wrong places. And then, not Chuck, we're going to get to this part. I told you we was going to get to it. I say it every week now, since I done started back. I would take a part of my show and talk about my Lyft experience over the weekend. So this weekend, Austin opened back up. It's been kind of open back up for the past 2 weeks. But this weekend, it was kind of a good crowd out there with the UT game being in town. And the wonderful thing about a college town is it's always something to do. So I'm doing my Lyft thing. I'm picking people up, dropping them off. And either it was because of the full moon or just people happy to be outside drinking like fish out of water. But I picked up a young lady And I'm riding, and the conversation was going normal. You know, how do I like Austin since I wasn't from here, and how do I like driving Lyft? And I'm telling her, you know, it's cool, and Austin has been an experience. So she says, and how's the pandemic been on your family? And I say, oh, well, you know, my family's doing pretty good all over the place. My family in Detroit's been doing pretty good. My family in Colorado's doing pretty good. And my family down here is doing pretty good. So she says, oh, I bet your wife. And when I said, no, I'm not married, I don't mean family like that. I mean just a couple relatives that stay in Austin like I stay in Austin. I kid you not. For the next 8 minutes, this passenger went into full-blown alligator tears. And I'm like, everything all right? Because I don't know about the rest of y'all fellas, but as a guy, I don't like to see no woman cry in front of me. So I'm trying to cheer her up, and I'm like, what's going on? And she's just like, oh, God, it had to be so awful for you. You going through this whole thing alone. And I'm thinking, okay, I've heard of empathy, but never like this. Like, I'm okay. The pandemic for me has been a wonderful experience. It's been growth. It's been a lot. And she's just really crying, like legitimately crying. And I was like, well, whatever club you came from, I would love to go in there, because apparently they drinks are what's up. And she's like, no, it's not the liquor. I could just imagine. She's steady crying about me being, I guess, a single guy during the pandemic. And all of the stuff she named, I was thinking like, but I enjoy doing that with or without somebody. So it brought a point up to me, like, how many single people really feel like that young lady felt during this pandemic? Like, is it really taking that kind of toll on y'all to where it's driving y'all into depression? Because I never looked at it like that. I just took it as stay in the house and live. I mean, because at one point in time, I was petrified during this whole pandemic. Especially when I looked at my hometown, and it was just like every day the numbers was going up by the thousands. It had me worried. Because I got elderly family members all over the country. So from that aspect, I could see, like, yeah, a person going through it by themselves and can't release that, or having nobody to just speak on how they feeling about their family or just the worry they going through. That's one thing. But, like, I guess to go through the pandemic and be depressed because you don't have a mate, I don't know. I guess that, at least for me personally, that doesn't bother me. I mean, it would, although I guess it would be fun. You got somebody there and y'all just sharing all this time together. But then from the other aspect, it's like, even married, you take space from each other. Your wife might go shopping, and she want to go shopping with her daughters or friends or whatever. But to be on stay-at-home order with somebody 24/7, that's another thing. But to be single during it really wasn't a bad thing. Especially with this whole social media thing. I kept in touch with friends. I kept in touch with some family members. Me and my bro-mo in North Carolina stayed video chatting. So I never really took the time to sit back and think about if I was lonely or not. It didn't seem like it, because it just seemed like it was always something going on. It was always something for me to do. And I guess I was being accountable for myself at that time. I realized as much as I like to move around, that chances are I was either going to be around an uncle or I would possibly see my parents, and they're all older, and far be it from me to ever want to expose them to anything as deadly as this virus has been. So see, even then, I was being accountable. And I guess I really didn't drive the point home like I really need to. See, here's the thing. Me personally, I've always been the type of person that you never know what you're saying or what you're doing and how it can affect somebody. So even if you don't think that what you did was wrong or offensive, if another person says it is, that means even if it's not an issue to you, it was to them. That makes it valid to them. Be accountable enough as a person to beg their pardon, a good my bad. See, the problem becomes when you try to make excuses and it be about everything except for the one thing that a person be waiting to hear. A lot of times, differences, everything can be solved with one, oh, my bad, I didn't even realize I was doing that. Or, excuse me, I didn't know. So accountability has always been high up on my board. You have to be accountable. You got some people that's in relationships that will expect their girl to do a certain thing that they not even willing to do themselves. And vice versa. So start being more accountable, people. Because me, myself, I know my personality, yeah, I'm a cool dude, laid back, humble type guy. But it's parts of me that ain't no day at the beach. And I have to be accountable for that when they come across the wrong way to somebody. I have to be very accountable. That's when it gets into the let me self-check. That's being accountable. Because we all know ourselves, or we very well should know ourselves. That's just like if you could sit up and tell somebody, oh yeah, I know I'm crazy. And when you do something that seems crazy to that person and they acknowledge that, like, hey, it shouldn't ruffle your feathers. Because you knew, you told them, you specifically addressed it before you even did it. Which leads me back into the speak what you seek till you see what you spoke. I don't know why this thought had even came across my mind earlier. But I was thinking about something. You remember I was talking about the friend zone and who came up with that? Think about this. Who came up with the term, I'm ready to settle down. When did that start? I'm ready to settle down. You think about what you're saying when you say that. Settle and down. So you're ready to settle down. Yet in the same breath, we'll all say we don't want to settle. How real is that? So it's almost like you speaking it into existence when you get into that relationship. And you wondering how this person just seemed like knight in shining armor. This was your one. Until y'all got together. Because you spoke it into existence before you even got to it. You was ready to settle down. And the universe hears you. So it made you settle down. Basically downgrading yourself from what you really were. So let's stop with the sayings, I'm ready to settle down. I'm ready to get hitched. Because you speaking them thoughts into the universe. If you know you don't want to settle, why not say, I'm ready to live my best life. And before you know it, you'll look up and actually be living your best life. On top of the 3 quick topics I went through, I felt I had to address that whole settle down thing because it came to me earlier and I was like, dang, that's deep. Sometimes I even amaze myself. And I called my pops and told him that I would speak on what I was telling y'all earlier because a lot of times that's a sensitive subject. But for me, it's not so much. It's kind of like a prideful thing to me because I look at it like I'm a walking example that you can overcome any and everything that's put in front of you. So every time an obstacle comes, don't look at it as it's the end of the world. Like before I even did my first episode, my producer had told me, he said, promise me something. And I said, what's that? That you're not going to stop. Even if it hit a wall, if it seems like it's slowing down. And I said, why would we? We're going to keep it going every week, every Tuesday. And it'll get better and better and better. That was me being accountable yet again. And me showing up and being the best version of myself. So you see, the things I spew off to y'all, I don't just spew them off just because it sounds good or just because I want y'all to feel a certain type of way. I say them from personal experience. I'm practicing what I preach, so to speak. So this week, before I get out of here, I'm going to leave y'all. First, I got to give my 15 seconds of shame. My 15 seconds of shame this week is not one person in particular. It's a group of people. That group of people that chooses to use mental health as a crutch to be assholes to people. My 15 minutes of shame this week goes to y'all. Because it's time to be more accountable. It's time to understand that sometimes the smallest action from you could cause the biggest reaction from others. I got to give y'all a jewel, too, before I get out of here. And I think this week is something simple. Start taking the time to try to understand somebody else's point of view before you be quick to judge. Because we are being judged. And another thing, if you gotta overthink and you do something to somebody, and you ain't even gotta tell us all this, you ain't even gotta address it, you know. If you done did something to somebody and it still be in the back of your mind, that's telling you that maybe you didn't do the right thing. So maybe you need to address that. It's time to be more accountable. It's time to start acknowledging our actions. It's time to just start being better people all around. Because if from what we've been seeing this whole year can't unite us and make us better people, then some kind of way we missing the boat, y'all. This has been another episode of the Jackson Report. Be kind to one another. Good night, y'all.